Evening. Oh, sorry. Good evening and welcome to the City of Roswell Mayor and City Council meeting for September the 12th, 2022. I am Mayor Kurt Wilson. I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues and council members present. Councilmember Christine Hall, Councilmember Lee Hills, Councilmember Mike Palermo, Councilmember William Mortland, and I believe Councilmember Peter Vanstrom is on his way. And I'd like to now turn it over to our City Administrator, Randy Knighton, to explain how the meeting is run. Mr. Knighton.
Thank you, Mayor Wilson, and welcome to everyone this evening. In accordance with Section Chapter 3.70 of the City Code of City Council, shall hold regular public meetings. The purpose of City Council meetings are for the public to participate and speak on agenda items, which constitute formal decisions by the elected body. These items are listed on the published agenda, which can be accessed via the city website prior to the meeting. This is a public meeting, and some items do require a formal public hearing. A significant and important component of the City Council meetings are to hear directly from citizens on the items listed on the agenda. Public comments or questions are essential for the mayor and council to incorporate as they contemplate each decision. Citizens are at the top of the organizational chart, and therefore it is imperative for mayor and council to hear from citizens in these meetings. If you would like to speak on an item, we ask that you fill out a comment card, which are located in the back of the room and at the podium to ensure an accurate record of the meeting. We ask, of course, that everyone observe the principles of mutual respect and display the appropriate demeanor during the course of the meeting this evening, which should be reflective of this great community. The mayor is the presiding officer of the meeting and will ensure the orderly exchange of comments, questions, and discussion leading to decision-making by the elected body. We would encourage those in attendance and the viewing audience to visit the city website for meetings, events, and departmental information. We also encourage you to review and participate in the various activities and offerings in the city of Roswell. There are a number of events scheduled upcoming in the city of Roswell that the mayor will speak to in just a moment, which promote community, physical activity, and leisure as we make Roswell the #1 family community in America. Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Knighton. At this time, we will have the invocation, a moment of silence. I'd like to call Pastor Alan Ryan from Gethsemane Garden Missionary Baptist Church to the front for the invocation and moment of silence. Pastor Ryan.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Great, yes, sir.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, Lord God, Lord, we know that you sit high, Lord, but you look low. Lord, we know that we have all benefited from your mercy and your grace. Lord, we know we have all benefited, Lord, from your provision and your protection. Lord, we pray right now, Lord, that we just recognize your love for each of us. Lord, we recognize, Lord, how much you have blessed each of us. And Lord, we pray, Lord, that we all work towards a common vision of a wholeness for our community. Lord, we would like everyone to be able to experience your love and a full experience of positiveness in this community. Lord, we pray right now, Lord, that we would have the love of you in us from day to day. Lord, that we would have your wisdom. Lord, we would seek your righteousness. Lord, we pray for each person here represented, each household represented here today. Lord, we pray that each household represented here is overflowing with love and your righteousness. Lord, we pray right now, Lord, that what happens here ultimately builds up this community and builds up each of us individually in our respective families. Lord, we pray right now for those who are not here but are here in spirit. And Lord, we just pray that we would all cooperate in a way that is orderly and upbuilding. Lord, we say this prayer in Jesus' name, and in his matchless name we do pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Ryan, so much. Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to call my friend Harvey Smith, who is a member of the Roswell Rotary Club, to come forward and lead us in the pledge.
Thank you. And now if you join me in the pledge to the United States. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Harvey. Well, next on the agenda is the mayor's report. Next on the agenda is the mayor's report. My first item is the reading of a proclamation for the esteemed veteran of Roswell Award to Specialist 4th Class Lawrence Munn. At this time, I'd like to call Specialist 4th Class Lawrence Munn forward to meet me for the proclamation. Proclamation, Office of the Mayor, Specialist 4th Class Lawrence A. Munn, esteemed veteran. Whereas in May 1964, Lawrence A. Munn was drafted and informed by letter from the United States Department of Defense that he is to report in 30 days to the United States Army Basic Training Facility at Fort Dix, New Jersey, for 8 weeks of military training. The letter continued to say that upon completion of basic training, he would be assigned to a division of the United States Army based upon his military occupational specialty. And whereas in August of 1964, Lawrence was assigned to the Army's 1st Infantry Division located at Fort Riley, Kansas. His military occupational specialty was designated as a hydraulic valve repairman in the 1st Division's Air Mobility Unit. This consisted of working on UH-1B helicopters, commonly known as Hueys. While at Fort Riley, Lawrence received the Sharpshooter Award for the M1 and M16 rifles, an expert for the pistol. And whereas after 10 months of duty at Fort Riley, Kansas, Lawrence was assigned to the 1st Air Cavalry Combat Unit located at a United States Army Air Force base near Incheon, Korea. After a month of duty, he participated in a change of 2 Army divisions known as a change of patch ceremony. The 1st Cavalry Division was sent to Vietnam, and the 2nd Infantry Division was transferred to Korea. Larry was assigned to Company A, 2nd Aviation Battalion in the 2nd Infantry Division. And whereas Lawrence was subsequently trained to become a crew chief on the CH-21 Troop Transport Helicopter and was assigned a chopper to manage its maintenance, flight time, and servicing, flight assignments consisted of medical evacuation missions transporting the injured United States soldiers and South Korean soldiers from the demilitarized zone to area hospitals in 24-hour assignment shifts. There were also training missions to transport American and South Korean political dignitaries, such as the president, and transporting them not only to support the troops, but to conduct meetings of strategic military importance. And whereas Lawrence participated in the flight transportation of large warhead missiles to strategic areas in defense of any impending attacks from North Korea, for these particular missions, Lawrence was awarded a top-secret military clearance. This clearance is an in-depth character and criminal investigation by the military, which does extensive research into the past history of the recipient. This clearance is only awarded to a few individuals who participated in military assignments and missions of top-secret importance. This information consisted of classified information integral to the national security of the nation and military. And whereas upon retiring from the United States Army in 1970, Lawrence was honored and bestowed the following medals: Aviation Wings and Sharpshooter M14 Rifle and Sharpshooter M1 Rifle. Now therefore I, Kurt M. Wilson, Mayor of the City of Roswell, do hereby name Specialist 4th Class Lawrence A. Munn, an esteemed veteran of Roswell, and call upon all our citizens to recognize his outstanding service to our country and our community, and that there is no higher calling than those who have served in the United States Armed Forces. Thank you, Mr. Munn. Would you like to say a few words?
Mayor Wilson, I want to thank you for recognizing veterans. It's an honor to be here. And 56 years ago, I was in Oakland, California, and I had to run a gauntlet of protesters. And it was not a fun time to be in the military. And I've known guys that would take their uniform off before they had to face them. So it wasn't a very good time, but this is very nice that you're doing this for veterans. Christine Hall, I want to thank you for nominating me for this. Appreciate it very much. And Robin, thank you for your help in arranging this and putting it together. And I said, why do you want me? They said, look, I only served 2 years. I was in the military. I wasn't full-time, and I was drafted. So you said, well, wait a minute, you were drafted, so why don't you talk a little bit about the draft? I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. So anyways, I won't take a lot of time, but I graduated from, well, let's put it this way. We've been in Roswell 27 years. I've got 3 kids. 2 are here right now, along with my wife, and 5 grandchildren. And I graduated from high school in 1960, and I was 18 years old. And when you're 18 years old at that age, you are faced with 6 years of military duty, 2 years active and 4 years inactive. The inactive can consist of 2 weeks in the summer, or they can take you in at any time during that period of time. So if you're 18 years old, you have to about age 25 to worry about going in the military. So when you graduate, you're either going to go to work, you're going to get married, you're going to go in the military, or you're going to go to Canada. And some people did that. So I decided that I was going to go to college, but before I did that, I tried 3 times to get into the military. I was turned down twice because they had met their objectives. They had enough recruits. And the 3rd time, I was going to go into a helicopter school, Fort Rucker, Alabama. And they sent me a letter and said, no, you didn't make it. And I said, why? And they said, well, you have somnambulism. I don't know if anybody knows what that is. But they said I walked in my sleep after I was 19 years old. And therefore, that disqualified me for going in the service. So I said, okay, I'll take my chances. So I went to a 2-year school, I graduated, and I got an associate degree. I worked for a small company in Buffalo. We're from the Buffalo, New York area. Buffalo Bills, go Bills. And I graduated in 1962. I then went to work for a small company in the Buffalo area, and life was great. I bought a new car, 1963 Chevy convertible, 4 on the floor, 300 horsepower. Had a great time. Next month, I got my greetings. The greetings is a letter the government sends you and said, congratulations, you've been selected. You're going to go to Fort Dix, New Jersey. You got 30 days notice. So I sold the car to my cousin and went to Fort Dix, New Jersey, and served 2 months there. I then got the order to go to Fort Riley, Kansas, and you know the rest. And from there, I went to Korea and served 10 months there. However, one story was that when I was at Fort Riley, 10 months after I was there, the company commander came to me and said, hey, I see you were trying to get into Fort Rucker and you want to be a helicopter pilot. I said, yeah. He said, I can get you in there. I said, wait a minute. I said, I've already been here 10 months. I only got 18 months to go, or 18 months to go. You missed your chance. No way am I going to go in. So, anyways, I've completed my tour of duty, 2 years. And then 2 years later, I got called for 2 weeks of training at Fort Drum, New York. So I went there, never got called back again after that. But the military meant a lot. It gave me a lot of insight. It pushes you physically as far as you can go. It pushes you mentally. It tests you what you can do with no sleep. It gives you a sense of accomplishment working within a group. It teaches you how to achieve goals, set goals, etc. And most of all, it gives you the GI Bill. And that's what meant more to me than anything. I came back. I worked at General Motors for a period of time, and that's where I met my wife. I worked there for, I think it was 6 months. We started dating, and the company found out about it, and they had a policy saying no dating here, so they transferred me to Detroit. So for 2 years, I was in Detroit, and I took plane, trains, and automobiles to come back and date my wife, Carol. And finally, I said, wait a minute, I'm 27 years old. I got to go back to school, and that's what I did. So I took the GI Bill, worked 18 months, and went straight through school for 3 years. And I got a bachelor's degree, then I got my master's degree. But between there, we got married. And we've been married for 52 years. So but the military gave me a lot. Without that, I don't know where I'd be today. I don't know what would have happened. If I didn't go into the service and do what I did, I have no idea what my career would have been like. But I've traveled all over. The job I had, I worked for Citibank and commercial real estate lending for a number of years. And they sent me all over the world and different places, and I visited different countries on my own. And I want to thank my family for coming here. This is my wife, Carol, my daughter, Kimberly, and my son, Brian, and our friends, Chuck and Pam Rode. Chuck was honored a couple weeks ago for his service. And but I want to say one thing is we experienced socialism. We lived in Canada for 9 years. We had experience with communism, lived capitalism, and the one thing I can say is that it's great to be in the USA. This is a place to be, to raise a family, to live and work and play and serve. And I'm glad I went into service. It gave me a lot of direction, and the draft helped me out. So I appreciate you all listening to this, and thank you very much.
Stay up here. Carol, come on up. Kevin, is Brian here? Brian's here. And Kimberly? And you got 5 grandkids here, right? You got your and I know Council wants to come down here. Council, come on down. And I know everybody wants to take some pictures with you right quick.
Tell them that you're the national horseshoe champion.
I didn't know. I thought you were somebody else. Here, you tell them. Christine.
So we're in the presence of the national horseshoe champion. You can tell us a little bit.
She's awesome.
I know.
Thank you guys for having us.
Oh my gosh. 56? Yeah. Another 25, right?
4 years, because he got transferred to Detroit, so.
That's right. Those
Yeah.
in between?
Yep.
Exactly.
Thanks for having us.
That's so funny. All right, let's see. The next item on the mayor's report is an approval of Design Review Board appointment Jeffrey Green. Are there any comments on the appointment of Jeffrey Green to the Design Review Board from council? All right. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on the matter of Jeffrey Green being appointed to the Design Review Board? Would Mr. Green himself like to say anything? Don't be shy. Come on up to the podium. I won't bring you there to you, Mr. Green. Since you're going to be the DRB, you got to come up to the front center stage. And how are you? Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. Just really quickly, I've been a resident of Roswell for 21 years. It's a great place to raise a family. It is blessed to just have fun in this city and watch it develop and grow. I am humbled to be invited to join. Forward to working with each and every one of you, learning to just continue to help make this place a better city to live in and thrive in. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green, so much. I appreciate you. We appreciate your willingness to serve. Thank you, sir, for being with us. Any other further comments from council? Welcome, Dr. Vanstrom. We're glad you're here. You look very tanned and rested and ready, by the way. All right, so do I have a motion to approve Mr. Jeffrey Green to the Design Review Board?
Motion to approve.
Motion is made by Councilmember Hall. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Mortland. All those in favor, please raise your hands. The motion passes unanimously. Mr. Green is now on the Design Review Board. Thank you, Mr. Green. Congratulations, sir. We will do a photo op after we get through the next one. The next item on the mayor's report is an approval of Historic Preservation Commission appointment Gertage Norong. Forgive me, Gertage. Are there any comments from the council on the appointment of Gertage Norong to the HPC? Being that there are no comments from council, are there any comments from the public? Anybody like to speak on the potential appointment of Gertage Norong to the HPC? Being that no one from the public would like to make any comments, would Mr. Gertage like to say anything?
Good for now.
Come on up, Gertage. Tell everybody who you are.
Roswell resident, born and raised in the area. Excited to get to work and see what we can make happen in Roswell and keep it historic. Exciting happening in the city. So.
Yeah. I should have asked Mr. Green one thing. I should have asked, sorry, Mr. Green, because I know you have an accomplished career. Gertage, everybody knows, like, where do you work? You work for some company. Like, you work, it's like an amazing, like, yeah, you're like an amazing recruit. Tell everybody where you work.
Currently work at Salesforce, finishing up my degree at Georgia State, graduating in December, and counting down the days to graduate.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to bring it back to council. Would anybody from council have any additional comments on the prospective appointment of Mr. Gertage Norong to the HPC? Being that there are none, do I have a motion to approve Gertage Norong to the Historic Preservation Commission?
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Councilmember Lee Hills. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Worthland. I have a seconded by Councilmember Mr. William Worthland. All those in favor of approving Gurtaj Narong to the Historic Preservation Commission, please raise your hands. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Gurtaj, very much. All right, council, let's go down to the front down here and let's ask Mr. Narong and Mr. Green come up and take a quick picture with us, if you don't mind.
Let's keep smiling. Congratulations.
Okay, Christine, do I have any more sneak announcements you want to throw at me before I go on the rest of my pieces here?
No, you're good to go.
Okay, cool. All right, good. So the final item on the mayor's report is upcoming events in the city, and we have a lot of great events in September. This Thursday, 3 nights from now, Thursday, September the 15th, from 9 p.m. to 5 p.m. to 9 p.m., Alive in Roswell. If you're not familiar with it, never been, please come. It's unbelievable, great fun. It's on Canton Street. And guys, if you haven't done it, come do it. Also, on Saturday, September the 17th, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., will be the Smithsonian Magazine Museum Day, and it will be at Barrington Hall, Bullock Hall, Smith Plantation, and Mimosa Hall from 10 to 4 this Saturday, September 17th. Also, on Saturday, September the 17th, and Sunday, September the 18th, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at Town Square, will be the Roswell Arts Festival. If you haven't done that before, highly recommend it. Great fun for families, great fun for couples, great fun for individuals. Go to the Roswell Arts Festival this Saturday, September 17th, or this Sunday, September 18th, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Town Square. Also, this Saturday, September 17th, will be Rivers Alive. I believe Councilmember Hills, do you want to say anything about Rivers Alive?
Thank you, Mayor. I sure would. It is so much fun. My family members have participated over the years, off and on, and it was my first time last year. So we got dirty. We picked up garbage at all the river parks. Fingernails were dirty. And my team happened to win. We got the most garbage. But anyway, this mayor and council would challenge all of you to join in the fun. It really is fun. And then seeing all the garbage come in and they weigh it and you know, calculate what all that is. But we are going to try to pull together ourselves, if we don't get spread amongst several teams, to challenge the city for all the other teams for the most garbage collected. So I hope you'll come out and join the fun. Rain or shine. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councilmember Hills. I appreciate that very much. Also, on Saturday, September the 24th, from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., will be Roswell Riverside Sounds. And the artist will be the Get Right Band. And if you haven't gone down to Riverside Park and done the Roswell Riverside Sounds, it is great fun, Saturday, September 24th, from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. The next to last thing I want to mention to you is that the council and there will be doing 5 scheduled bond referendum informational meetings. And the very first one of those will be next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow, September the 20th, at 7 p.m. at East Roswell Park. The other scheduled dates, these are public meetings, for the information meetings will be October the 4th at 7 p.m. at Hembry Park, October the 18th at 7 p.m. at Roswell Area Park, the Bill Johnson Community Activity Building, October the 25th at 7 p.m. at the Roswell Adult Recreation Center, and October 26th at 7 p.m. at St. Andrew Catholic Church. In addition, I can tell you that there are, have been, I think, a few HOA meetings set up already. So if you're an HOA or just a group of citizens and you have an interest in having the council and mayor come do a bond referendum informational meeting, we'll be happy to do that. Just remember, this is about 3 separate questions that you as Roswell voters will have the opportunity to vote on during the elections of November the 8th. And those are reference to bond question 1, $107.6 million for recreation parks, bicycle and pedestrian paths and sidewalks. Question 2, bond question 2, $52 million for public safety, police and fire capital projects. And bond question 3, $20 million for a downtown public parking deck. The bond referendum informational meetings will be where council and mayor are there present, presenting information, and therefore any questions that you might have as a resident about these 3 particular bonds. I believe the last thing that I'm going to mention on the from an informational perspective is that on Wednesday, September the 21st, that's a week from Wednesday, I'd like to announce a multi-city town hall meeting. And this is where all members of the public are invited to attend the town hall meeting, during which mayors from all 6 North Fulton communities will discuss their concerns about proposed allocation changes to Fulton County's local option sales tax, otherwise known as LOST. LOST is a 1% sales tax distributed between Fulton County and the cities in Fulton County. Over the next 10 years, LOST is estimated to generate $3 billion. This says $3 billion. It's really $4 billion. To generate $4 billion to fund government services in Fulton County and the 15 cities in the county. As an important revenue source for all cities, LOST helps keep property taxes down by helping cities cover the cost of vital services such as fire, police, transportation, recreation and parks, and other services. Every 10 years by law, the cities in Fulton County must renegotiate LOST distributions. Currently, Fulton County is seeking to increase its share of LOST revenues from approximately 5% to 35%, which is a 600% increase. This increase would have a major impact on all 15 Fulton County cities, their annual budgets, their millage rates, and the mayors of the following North Fulton County cities will be here next Wednesday, the 21st. Myself, Kurt Wilson, as mayor of Roswell. Jim Gilvin as the mayor of Alpharetta. Forgive me. John Bradbury, mayor of Johns Creek. Peyton Jameson, mayor of Milton. Jim Still, mayor of Mountain Park. Rusty Paul, mayor of Sandy Springs. Moderating the panel will be Steve Gilback, WSB TV2 channel reporter. All Fulton County commissioners have been invited to participate in this important opportunity for dialogue with you as residents. I implore you as a fellow resident, get up to speed on the LOST negotiations. Currently, in the FY23 year, it's worth about approximately $30 million to the city of Roswell. It's a significant amount of money. So this is something that we're asking you as our fellow residents to get informed on. And next week from Wednesday, we will have a multi-city town hall right here. I also have a very special recognition regarding the City of Roswell 911 Center. The City of Roswell 911 Center has been recognized by the International Academies of Emergency Dispatch, IAED, as a triple accredited center of excellence in emergency medical dispatch, emergency fire dispatch, and emergency police dispatch. The City of Roswell 911 is the 21st triple ace in the world. IAED is the standard-setting organization for emergency services worldwide. or over 3,500 emergency communication centers in 46 countries worldwide use these protocols. Accreditation from the IAED is the highest distinction given to emergency communication centers, certifying that the center is performing at or above the established standards for the industry. Centers who earn ACE status are the embodiment of dispatch done right and have demonstrated strong local oversight, rigorous quality processes, and a commitment to data-driven continuous improvement. Chief Conroy, would you like to come forward and say a few words about this recognition?
I didn't want to come up alone, so I brought our 911 director, John Patrabowski, here. So if we could have our 911 communications officers please stand so everybody can stare at you while we talk. So just a couple words. I think I know the entire city council has visited our 911 communications center and has seen the operations in work while they're working. But I want our city to know what goes on in our 911 communications center is top notch. The men and women that we have working in there, they are the conduit for our community to our public safety responders. Without 911, police and fire are not going to make it to your house or to your business to protect you. They do a tremendous job. I wanted to repeat one of the numbers the mayor said because it's an important number. 21st in the world. That's not a misprint. It's not 21st in the state, 21st in the United States. 21 centers in the world have this triple accreditation, police, fire, and EMS. It's a tremendous achievement. It ensures that we have best practices when people are calling. They need police service, fire service, or EMS service. It ensures that we get the appropriate resources to your emergency and ensures that they're well prepared when they arrive. Plus, they give pre-arrival instructions. So a lot of people don't know in some 911 centers, many communities, large communities near us, if you call 911, you say, my husband is having a heart attack. We're on the way, and they hang up, and it's up to you until we arrive, and that's going to seem like forever. One of the things that our center does, they will give you pre-arrival instructions. Don't worry, they've already dispatched help, but they're going to ask you questions and give you pre-arrival instructions to try to save a life before we get there, because those initial moments are crucial in saving lives. This program saves lives. The accreditation that they've achieved is phenomenal. 21st in the world. Only 20 other agencies in the world have this accreditation. I'd like to reiterate that. Also, we'll be back in, hopefully, right after November with another prestigious accreditation. The 911 director and I have to go to St. Louis to go before another accrediting board for a different accreditation for our 911 center. But the men and women that are here, I thank you for everything you do. Please give them another round of applause for being there for all of us. John loves to speak. Do you want to say anything, John?
I'll be quick. I'm very proud of this team. They worked very hard, and it's just an honor to serve the city, but also to serve this team. Thank you.
All right, don't go anywhere, John. Chief, I think the council wants to come down there, and let's get a picture with everybody right quick. All right, next is the consent agenda. Does council have any questions or comments regarding the consent agenda or any particular items on the consent agenda? Being that council has no comments on the consent agenda, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on the consent agenda? Since there are no comments from the public on the consent agenda, I'll bring it back to council. Any further comments or questions from council on the consent agenda? There being none, I'd like to call for a motion. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Councilmember Hills. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilmember Vanstrom. All those in favor of approval of the consent agenda this evening, please raise your hands. The consent agenda passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next is Community Development Department. Councilmember Palermo, would you read the first community development item, please, sir?
Item number 1, approval of CU 2022230, I think I got them all, and CV 2022239 12655 Old Surrey Place, Carriage House. Ms. Martin?
Good evening. Go. Technical difficulty, sorry. Okay, thank you. So again, conditional use application 2022-2230 and concurrent variance application 2022-2397. The applicant is requesting a conditional use for carriage house and a concurrent variance to minimum required building separation, which is UDC 3.2.6, lot and placement, letter F. The timeline for this, they submitted in May of this year, had a neighborhood meeting in July, Planning Commission on August 16th, and then tonight here at Mayor and Council meeting, September 12th. The aerial showing the location. This is in a subdivision located off Cox Road. The zoning is RS30, which is single family estate. Future land use area map, estate residential. This is the site plan, shows the location of the proposed carriage house highlighted in purple for you. You can see that it's 82 feet from the side property line, 98 feet from the rear property line. And it has a proposed building separation of 16 feet, which is less than the required 35 feet. So they are requesting a variance of 19 feet to that building separation. The property is 2.89 acres. Parking on the site is included. There has been no opposition received by staff. We did receive one email in support of the project from a neighbor. The staff of Community Development is recommending approval of both the conditional use and the concurrent variance. And on August 16th, 2022, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of both the conditional use and the concurrent variance. The applicant is here tonight.
Thank you. Would the applicant please come forward? Welcome. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Glad you're here.
Thanks.
So, anything you want to present before I just let the council come? No questions.
No, she did an excellent job.
Okay,
And has up to this point, yeah.
Is there anybody from the public that'd like to speak on this? Fantastic. Are there any questions or comments from council? Thank you very much. Councilmember Palermo, do you have a motion?
I do, and I guess I will give some comments before I make that motion. Just basically, in looking at the, can we go back to actually the site plan? Thank you. I mean, basically, this is certainly a large project, and or I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. This is a large property, and it's something where certainly I do want to make sure that we're supporting, or at least I'll speak for myself. I certainly support carriage houses when they're not infringing too close on other properties or neighbors opposing and things like that. There was no opposition. So for a number of different reasons, in looking this and everything that staff's presented, I would like to motion to approve this conditional use and concurrent variant. And before I do it as well, actually, Ms. Martin, could you, or Ms. Dybel, could you again, in layman's terms, describe what would happen if the variance was not approved?
Okay, so you're requesting specifically the building separation, the concurrent
Yes,
variance.
exactly.
They would have to move that 35 feet away from the main house.
Thank you. And so that's something I think we should look at and discuss, because I'd actually, for any property, any carriage house, I'd prefer it closer to the house, not closer to the neighbor's property line. So with that, I certainly motion to approve both this conditional use for a carriage house, as well as the variance, so that they can actually make the carriage house further away from the neighbor's property line.
Thank you, Councilmember Palermo. I can't believe we caught you sleeping on this on the comments. We had to get to the motion.
Yeah.
But the comments were worth noting. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion by Councilmember Palermo on the floor. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Vanstrom. All in favor of the approval, CU 2022-2330/CV 2022-2397, 12655 Oak Survey Place, Carriage House, please raise your hands. It passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Councilmember Palermo, will you read the next community development item?
Item number 2, approval of a text amendment to the Unified Development Code to section 9.7.20, parking on site. This is the second reading. Mr. Davidson?
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. Yes, sir. Sorry.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend the Unified Development Code by modifying Article 9, accessory uses, section 9.7.20, parking on site. Now therefore, the mayor and council of the city of Roswell, Georgia, pursuant to their authority, do hereby amend Article 9, section 9.7.20, parking on site of the Unified Development Code, the text of which is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this would be the second reading.
Councilmember Palermo, would you call Jackie Dybel forward?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the second reading for EDC Section 9.7.20, parking on site. As stated, the timeline here was initiated by the Mayor and Council committee in June. It went to Planning Commission the first time on July 26th. It was deferred. It was heard by the Mayor and Council on August 8th for their first reading. It went back to the Planning Commission on August 16th, and then it had another, or a second, the first reading was originally deferred at the Mayor and Council, so the Council's first reading was August 22nd, and tonight is the second reading. So as you can see on the screen, the section 9.7.20 will be deleted in its entirety and replaced with the new proposed text amendment. It addresses where commercial vehicle can be parked in each district: residential, commercial, mixed use, historic downtown, or office. And the text amendment includes the defined parking provided on site to serve a principal use. And then in section B1, except as authorized by the subsection 2, in all the residential districts, the parking of commercial vehicles defined as motor vehicle licensed by the state as a commercial vehicle is prohibited. Vehicles or equipment used exclusively for agricultural purposes on agriculturally zoned property with 3 acres or more are permitted if parked outside the permitted required front setback. In the residential districts, the parking of the following commercial vehicles are permitted: automobile, pickup truck, van, or SUV, commercial vehicle that is parked temporarily in conjunction with commercial service, sale, delivery, or pickup, and where a home occupation business license has been issued to the resident. No more than 1 vehicle associated with the home occupation may be parked at that site. And letter C, except as otherwise specified, in all commercial mixed-use, historic, and office, it is unlawful for any person to permit or cause any commercial vehicle to be parked or stored in such district unless they are engaged in the loading and unloading and is owned or being used by the business located on the property, or a business on the property is conducting operations and the vehicle is in connection with such activity. Use of the on-site parking lots, loading zones, or loading docks by operators of the commercial vehicles for sleeping or parking overnight is strictly prohibited. And the provisions of subsection C of this section shall not apply to properly zoned truck rental, leasing, or sale facilities operating, conducting business within allowed zoning districts. And the last, I think there's one more section. Parking in hotel or motel lots. Commercial vehicles may be parked in the lots of the hotels and motels, provided the operators of these vehicles are registered guests of the hotel. Where said vehicle is a tractor trailer, only the cab may be parked at the hotel or motel. And any hotel or motel providing designated parking spaces for these vehicles pursuant to this subsection are prohibited from acting as a routing agent for said vehicles. And lastly, commercial vehicles may be parked overnight or for storage purposes only in the industrial zoning districts or provided herein. And parking on vacant commercial property is prohibited. Do you have any questions for staff?
Council, any questions or comments for Jackie? Yes, Councilmember Hills.
Thank you, Mayor Wilson. Just for the sake of our listeners and viewers, can you describe what would happen if a semi were parked illegally somewhere on a Saturday night? What a resident might do now that this is hopefully going to pass?
Well, if it was overnight, they would have to call the police. However, if it was during the day or it was in the evening or sometime prior to 5 o'clock, they could call code enforcement. But if it's overnight, they could call the police, and then the police would be able to enforce this.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council? Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this item? Being that nobody from the public would like to speak on the item, I bring it back to council. Any further comments or questions from council? Councilmember Hills?
I have one more. I just want to, I'm going to give a shout out without a name to someone I hope is listening tonight, because a number of our residents have complained incessantly about this, particularly on our east side. And while it looks like nothing's being done about things like this is what this mayor and council is working on. It may seem like minutia if it's not your front yard or backyard, but it's a big darn deal to the folks that are having to deal with this kind of thing. And I just want to say that we're working on a myriad of things like this, not just tractor trailers, but a lot of things that may not be a transportation issue or something else. But I just want you to know that we are absolutely committed to getting things like this right and correcting things that have been ignored for some time. So for those of you, I hope my friend, I'll call you tomorrow, are listening to this, but we're taking care of business. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hills. Any other comments from council? All right, that being said, Councilmember Palermo, would you like to make a motion on this item? On the second reading here, I apologize.
I would, and really well said, Councilmember Hills. I think this is a great example of this mayor and council making sure to address resident needs and really go after core issues to make sure that we can be just really focused on really helping bring this city in the right direction for our residents. So with that note, I would like to approve this text amendment to the UDC to section 9.7.20, parking on site.
Thank you, Councilmember Palermo. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Hills. All those in favor, please raise your hands. This motion, second reading, passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Councilmember Palermo, would you read the next community development item?
Item number 3, approval of a text amendment to the Unified Development Code regarding section 6.5.2, use table for self-service storage. This is the first reading.
Thank you very much, Councilman Palermo. City Attorney Davidson, would you please read the ordinance?
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance to amend the Unified Development Code by modifying Article 6, Section 6.5.2, use table regarding self-storage. Now therefore, the mayor and council of the city of Roswell, Georgia, pursuant to their authority, do hereby amend Article 6, Section 6.5.2, use table of the Unified Development Code, the text of which is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this will be the first reading.
Any questions or comments for Ms. Dybel from council?
Question would be if Ms. Dybel can present to the audience.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Councilmember Palermo. Thank you for catching me.
So this text amendment went through committee in June of this year. It was initiated by the mayor and council at their July 11th meeting, and it was heard by the planning commission at their August 16th meeting. This request is to replace the current P, which is permitted, to an L, limited use for all self-service storage in the industrial light zoning classification. So what that means, and I was going to read this because I thought you might ask, Planning Commission and staff do recommend approval of that. So under the limitations section in 9.6.5.4, self-service storage, so where it's a limited use, so currently as it stated, it's permitted. So once it's limited, it means it'll have to meet the limitations that are currently in section 9.6.4 of the code. So that means that the minimum lot size is 2 acres. All storage must be contained within a fully enclosed building. However, the storage of boats, recreation vehicles, or other similar vehicles are allowed, subject to 9.7.18. Loading and unloading of units must be accomplished solely within the inside of the enclosed building. If windows are used in exterior walls of the enclosed building, such windows shall be tinted or otherwise screened to shield the storage units within from view from the outside. No roll-top doors shall be used on the exterior of the building enclosing the units, and ground floor of self-storage facilities shall not be used for storage units, but may be used for office and retail sales related to the storage or for other purposes allowed in the zoning district. Outside of the historic district, a variance can be requested to the mayor and council for the ground floor requirements. And also, a type A or B buffer must be established along all shared property lines except for when abutting a self-storage facility or light industrial use. So once this is created as a limited use, if a new self-storage facility comes into the city, they must meet those limitations. Do you have any questions for staff?
Council, any comments or questions for Jackie? Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you. I'd just like to give some background on this because so Ms. Dybel did, I thought, a great job of reading through what the current existing limited requirements are within our code. And the interesting thing is because it was just storage was just changed from limited to permitted about a year or two ago, it basically throws out everything that Ms. Dybel just said. So what basically happened was probably about 4 years ago, the then council, which I was a part of, I thought did a great job working through, finding some compromises, and really making some better quality requirements around storage. So that's why, because if you go actually and see some new storage buildings in Sandy Springs or Alpharetta, you'll actually see them looking more appropriate for the area versus if you go on Sun Valley and see the one with those storage doors, that large facility right across the street from where we're gonna hopefully get a really incredible electric car dealership. But basically, I thought it was a great job of coming up and working with staff and the community back in 2018. And I believe that was unanimous. Unfortunately, a year or two ago, in a 4-3 vote, the decision was made to eliminate those and just make it permitted to make it easier for more storage units and less strict requirements for more storage units. So again, I think this is absolutely the right thing to do, to move it back to limited, so that everything that Ms. Dybel said is relevant, and making sure that that if new storage is going to come into the city, that it's going to be appropriate and fitting the character more of the neighboring buildings and area. So for that reason, I certainly will be voting to support moving forward this first reading.
Thank you, Councilmember Palermo, for that good history lesson. Councilmember Hills.
Thank you, Mayor. This is another win, in my opinion, for our residents. This is this is one of the things in Roswell that when you drive down a street or turn in the corner, that you don't think about, because the exterior of a building doesn't stick out like a really sore thumb. As a resident running for office and now in office, I got to tell you, replace the P permitted to an L limited doesn't mean anything to me. So I just want to tell you, I mean, it does now, but as far as regular residents that are minding their own business and probably don't have a storage unit, this is a big deal. We're taking care of some of the small things that can make a big impact on each one of our neighborhoods, our areas where we shop, where we work, where we drive through. And kudos to Mike Palermo for the history lesson, seeing what could be, might be, did get changed, and now we're changing it back to something that we can be proud of. And I applaud you for that, and you will have my full support.
Thank you, Councilmember Hills. Any other questions or comments from council? Okay, being that there are no further comments from council, is there anyone from the public that'd like to speak on this item? Being that there's no one from the public that'd like to speak on this item, I bring it back to council. Any further comments or questions from the council? Councilmember Palermo, would you like to make a motion on the first reading?
Absolutely, and again, I'm very proud to really just move this back to being limited and making it so that what already exists in our code is actually needs to be followed, in which case I motion to approve the text amendment to the UDC regarding section 6.5.2, use table for self-service storage use.
Thank you, Councilmember Palermo. Do I have a second? Second. Seconded by Councilmember Hall. All those in favor, please raise your hands. The motion on the first reading passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Councilmember Palermo, would you read the last community development item?
Approval of the final plat 20222-928, located at 100 Spring Drive, Barrington Place. Ms. Dybel?
This is the final plat for Barrington Place at 100 Spring Drive. It's 3.40 acres. It's currently zoned RS12, single-family residential. There are 8 single-family houses. Tonight, what we're having here is the dedication of right-of-way and permanent easement for the roadway turnout, which is Emerson Court, to private street, and the sidewalks, 5-foot sidewalk on Spring and 8-foot on Marietta Highway. And here is the plat with the 8 lots. But if you look at this one here in yellow, as you can see, it's the dedication of the right-of-way to the city, and then the dedication of the right-of-way to GDOT, which is along Marietta Highway. But as stated, there are 8 lots, and this is for the acceptance of the final plat and the right-of-way. Do you have any questions?
Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Wilson. Just more of a comment for the public, just so those tuning in are aware of what's involved in approving the final plat of a development. Approving the final plat is not the opportunity for me as a council member to weigh in if I love a development or I support a development. A final plat is, from a legal standpoint, is just purely the things that the city is going to take regarding right-of-way, responsibility, et cetera. So in voting to approve the final plat tonight, that is not giving an opinion from anybody on this council tonight on the development, but instead just making sure that they're following the city's rules, in which case the city is going to take that right of way. That being said, what I will mention is everybody that follows me knows I love more pedestrian safety, and I love those wider sidewalks. So I certainly do like that there's the wider sidewalks on Marietta Highway.
Thank you, Councilmember Palermo. By the way, great description of that. Thank you. It's very, very beneficial. Any other comments from council? Being that there are no additional, I guess that's it, right? So have I taken it to the public already? Haven't it come back? Thank you. Okay. Councilmember Palermo, would you say your motion, please?
The public did have it was thrown to the public first.
I was it? Did I throw it to the public? If I didn't, I apologize. Thank you. I apologize. Would anybody from the public like to speak on this item? My apologies. Being that there's nobody from the public like to speak on this item, I'd bring it back to council for any additional comments or questions. All right, with no additional comments or questions, from the council. Councilmember Palermo, would you say your motion, please?
I motion to approve the final plat, 202222928, located 100 Spring Drive, Barrington Place.
Thank you, Councilmember Palermo. Do I have a second? I have a second from Councilmember Mortland. Thank you. Well done, Councilmember Mortland. All those in favor, please raise your hands. It passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next is the Finance Department. Councilmember Hall, would you read the finance item, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes. Item number 5, approval of an ordinance to adopt a millage rate of 4.463 for FY 2023. This is the second reading and will be presented by Director Luckett.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Hall. Mr. City Attorney Davidson, would you please read the ordinance?
Thank you. This is an ordinance to adopt the millage rate. Now therefore, the mayor and council of the city of Roswell wish to establish a millage rate of 4.463. The millage rate has a component of 4.363 mills for the general fund operating and capital improvements budget, and a component of 0.100 mills for servicing bonded indebtedness. If approved, this would be the second reading.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. I really appreciate that. Councilmember Hall, I can see you've called Mr. Ryan Luckett forward. Ryan, would you come up? Would you explain the item, please, sir?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. This is the second reading of our FY 2023 millage rate ordinance. I have an abbreviated version of the presentation I provided at our last meeting, so I'll get started with that. Just to provide some background, our FY 23 budget was adopted by the Mayor and Council on June 13th. We received the preliminary digest from Fulton County on July 6th, and feedback was received at the August 9th committee to advertise the rollback millage rate. The first reading of the millage rate ordinance was approved back on August 29th. For the FY 23 millage rate, the city is actually proposing a millage rate reduction. And you can see in this table that our millage rate is comprised of two components, the maintenance and operations and the debt service. We're proposing a reduction in the maintenance and operations portions of a little over $0.25 mil. This actually represents the rollback rate. And the rollback rate would result in a savings to the average Roswell home of about $45.90. This gives you an idea of the history of the city's millage rate over the last 10 years. And you can see that over the last 5 years, the millage rate has been reduced by nearly 1 mil, saving the average home approximately $180 annually. This graph gives you a millage rate comparison to our neighboring cities, and you can see the city of Roswell has the second lowest millage rate overall, as well as the second lowest maintenance and operations rate. Briefly, just to give you another recap of the property tax digest, you can see that our 2022 tax digest is right at $7.4 billion, which is an increase of 12.3% from the prior year. We have 4 different homestead exemptions that are provided or offered in the city of Roswell. 2 of those are for seniors, and 1 is for disabled veterans, and then we have the floating exemption that is for any resident that qualifies for the Fulton County Basic Homestead Exemption. Those exemptions total about $1.1 billion and equates to $5.1 million in tax savings for residents, or an average of $177 per household. In terms of the revenue from property tax, you can see that based on this rollback millage rate, we do anticipate bringing in about $600,000 less than what was included in the budget for FY 2023. As you know, Mayor and Council, in adopting the proposed budget for FY 2023, did set aside about $570,000 in fund balance to make up that difference. And so any necessary adjustments will be included with the mid-year budget amendment. So finally, today we're just asking for your consideration and approval of the second reading of the millage rate ordinance, and that concludes the presentation.
Thanks, Mr. Luckett. Does council have any questions or comments for Mr. Luckett? Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Wilson. And Mr. Luckett, you know I love bar graphs. Can you go back to that bar graph again? No, back to the, yes, the one that shows each year. So again, I know I believe I stressed this at the first reading, but I think it's important enough to call out again. So as you can see here with this, I wanna stress that just because a millage rate goes down, it does not mean it's not a tax increase. So for example, even when we've had the millage rate go down in the past, it was still a tax increase because it didn't go far enough down to make up for increased assessments. This is the first year in many years that the city is not raising our taxes. So this year we truly are going to the rollback rate, which truly means no resident will be shown that we've raised taxes because we did not do that. And I really just want to give credit to this mayor and council because it's obviously not easy. If it was easy, it would have always been done in the past. But this mayor and council made the tough decisions and really made it so that we're not raising the taxes, which is great. And I just really want to stress that actually I do not feel elected officials should decide if our taxes go up, so that's why I'm so glad this body decided that they would not decide to raise taxes, and I really feel it should be voters that decide if our taxes go up, and that's what I really love about the fact that there's a bond for voters to decide. If voters decide that they want to pay more taxes for better parks and more investment in the parks, they get to make that decision, and that's the voters' decision, not anyone up here. Same thing, of course, goes with support for our public safety, as well as same thing goes if people decide they want a downtown parking deck or not. But again, what I really love is we're empowering voters, we're empowering the residents, and again, we're not raising taxes finally. So thank you, Mayor and Council.
That's really well said, Mike. Thank you. That's the nut of the whole matter, and thank you for your leadership on this. When this issue first came up, you kind of jumped to the forefront on saying rollback rate, 100%, and you really kind of stood right in the middle of this and said, no, let's make sure we give a true tax reduction on this. So massive credit to you, Mike, on this, massive. And I love the way you explain the truth of the matter is you believe in the ostensible principles. The voters get to make the decision whether or not they raise the taxes on the millage rate, and it's very specific. So they make that decision. We're not making that decision, and that's a great point. Thank you, sir. Any other question? I know there's got to be some other comments from council. I mean, don't you wish you could take this to all 100,000 of our residents and show them this in detail so they could see this? Because it's a big deal. Yes, Councilmember Hall.
Yes, this is a big deal. And just in the two and a half years that I've been on, I know how hard Councilmember Palermo has fought for this, even in the 6 years that he has been in office, and along with Councilmember Zapata. I joined that 2.5 years ago, and it's wonderful to see it come to fruition now, finally, through all of this effort and hard work and alignment.
Thank you, Christine, so much. Council, any other thoughts? Well, with no other thoughts, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Hello, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry you're a stranger to our body, and but don't feel uncomfortable coming to the podium.
Janet Russell, Roswell resident. Quick question. I agree about bonds. I feel like property taxes are the dues to live in the club. However, I do have a question because it's a little misleading when you say we're going to save money by not having an increase. However, at least 2 years ago, they voted to increase our garbage rate and our water rates annually into infinity. So actually, there is no savings when every year your water rates go up and every year your garbage collection rates go up. It's just like, in New York, the pea under the pod, where is it? The shell game. I just think you need to be a little more transparent when you start increasing by your vote. I didn't get to vote if I wanted my garbage bill to go up. I didn't get to vote if I wanted my water rates to go up. I'm just saying that it's a real misleading thing to make us think we're saving money when we're not, because all of our assessed values of our homes have skyrocketed. However, when you increase the cost of services provided by the city, then this is a very misleading number, in my opinion.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. Yes, sir, Councilmember Palermo.
I would just like to point out that really what the millage rate is in any city, in any location, it ultimately is going to the general fund, which ultimately becomes discretionary from a mayor and council to spend on anything that city decides, whereas certainly every community has enterprise funds where there are fees set specifically for certain purposes, and again, there certainly is the garbage fees, which we've seen go up in every city. In fact, right before we had done it, Alpharetta had done it. There was a lot of news showing, and so ultimately, fees like that are direct and clear for the exact purpose, whereas in this being the discretionary, even though many people's homes have skyrocketed, the great thing about the rollback rate is, despite the skyrocketing value of the home, is the fact that the millage rate, which is multiplied by that assessed value of the home, is rolling back. So there's not an increase, a seen or expected increase from that standpoint. I just wanted to call out those points and those clarifications.
Thank you, Councilmember Palermo. Any other comments? Any other comments from any of our Roswell residents who'd like to speak on this matter? Being that there are no further comments from any Roswell residents, I bring it back to council. Any other comments from council? Okay. Councilmember Hall, would you like to make a motion on the second reading here?
Yes, Mayor. Motion to approve item number 5, approval of an ordinance to adopt a millage rate of 4.463 for FY 2023.
Thank you, Councilmember Hall. Do I have a second? Seconded by Councilmember Hills. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Next is the Recreation Parks, Historic and Cultural Affairs Department. Councilmember Mortland, would you read the Recreation Parks, Historic and Cultural Affairs item, please, sir?
Yes, sir. Approval of a resolution to accept an award for 2022 Fulton County Arts and Culture contract for services request in the amount of $15,600 to support Roswell's Dia de Muertos event and budget amendment 22261700091222 to set up the grant in amount of $31,200. Presented by Ms. Chris Ward.
Thank you. This evening I'm speaking about the resolution to accept an award for the 2022 Fulton County Arts and Cultural Contract for Dia de Muertos 2022. The matching grant in the amount of $20,000 was first brought to committee in January 11th, 2022 and to council on January 24th, 2022. The Contracts for Services program seeks to strengthen the cultural health of individuals, organizations, and communities by awarding funding and providing technical assistance to nonprofit organizations whose arts programming supports arts and cultural services to Fulton County residents. The purpose of the request that we made was to expand the event, increase authentic entertainment at Dia de Muertos, increase size of the event and allowing more participation of food and vendors, and to increase the educational aspect geared toward children and young adults. We also wanted to incorporate National Hispanic Heritage Month, which is September 15th through October 15th, by collaborating with our Cultural Arts Division and the Cultural Arts Center to support shows and events during this month. The total grant that we received was the amount of $15,600. Part of the stuff that we'll be using it for is for Dia de Muertos, which this year is October 29th, 2022. We'll be using it for the mariachis, Aztec dancers, Oaxaca dancers, ballet folklorico, and the educational aspect in collaboration with the Consulate General of Mexico in Atlanta. We also will be doing an authentic altar ofrendo. We also will be sharing some of the funds with the to support the National Hispanic Heritage Month in collaboration with our Roswell Cultural Arts Center. We'll be using the funding toward Natalia and Friends, which is a musical fiesta, which will be on October 8th during part of our Youth Day celebration, Hispanic Inventors exhibit, and the Latin Fit and Flow. Some of the post-award requirements: the programs must take place at locations that are physically accessible to all Fulton County residents, and a final report is required. This must be a narrative and financial update on the arts activities conducted during the funding cycle. Failure to submit by the deadlines may jeopardize organizations' future funding of this opportunity. We wanted to reiterate, we do have a partnership with the Mexican Consulate in Atlanta and the Atlanta History Museum. And then there's last year's Dia de los Muertos. Questions?
Thank you, Chris. Questions or comments from council? Thank you very much. Chris, hold on there for a second. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak? Or yes, ma'am. Council, yes, ma'am.
Janet Hidalgo Russell, so I think I know what I'm talking about. I spent the morning speaking Spanish and giving a tour to 2 visitors from Argentina in our historic district. I'm glad to see that the city is expanding their Dia de los Muertos celebration. However, I'm extremely disappointed that there wasn't a proclamation tonight honoring Hispanic Heritage Month, which begins this Thursday and continues for 30 days. The city has ignored Hispanic Heritage Month as an entire month for as long as I've lived here. Dia de Muertos is now the celebration of trend at this point all over Atlanta, and it's great fun. I started attending at the History Center when there was about 40 people, and now there's 5,000. The first year we did it here, it was horrible. Last year was much better, or with COVID, whenever it was. The performers you have coming are good. I know them. The Consulado de Mexico is a good friend of mine, Javier Diaz de Leon. He worked with us last year. I want it to be a respectful event. I want to remind you that we have an ofrenda. Do you know what the ofrenda is? The ofrenda is an altar dedicated to the memory of either a person or a theme. So we have an ofrenda 24/7. You know what it is? The Faces of War Memorial. So let's make sure it's incorporated into our Dia de Muertos celebration. I'd also like to see this city acknowledge the contributions of Hispanics in this city. Because if the Hispanics didn't show up on a Saturday night to Canton Street, you could put a closed for business sign out. There is no recognition of them anywhere. And I don't just mean people from Mexico. They are from all the Spanish-speaking countries. There is no recognition in this city, except Dia de Muertos, as a celebration of Hispanic contributions to our city, and I'd like to see that happen sooner rather than later.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. Are there any other comments from Roswell residents who'd like to speak on this item? Being that there are no further comments from Roswell residents, I bring it back to council. Council, any additional comments or questions on the matter at hand? Thank you very much. Councilmember Mortland, do you have a motion?
Yes, sir. Motion to approve to accept an award for the 2022 Fulton County Arts and Culture Contract for Services request in the amount of $15,600 to support Roswell's Dia de Muertos event and budget amendment 22261700091222 to set up the grant in the amount of $31,200.
Thank you, Councilmember Mortland. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Hills. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next is the Transportation Department. Councilmember Palermo, would you read the transportation item, please, sir?
Item number 7, approval of a resolution to apply for a Safe Streets and Roads for All, SS4A, discretionary grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation, presented by Mr. Cox.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. We're here to talk about a new U.S. DOT federal grant opportunity. We've been working with our grant staff downstairs, as well as consultants in Washington, D.C., that the city has engaged to help us navigate the plethora of grant opportunities that have come out over the past several weeks. And one thing I do want to point out, this item did not come through committee. We've been trying to organize a lot of different things, and given the deadline for this particular grant is on Thursday, we had to scramble to get a lot of things ready, so we had to bring this item straight to council. So I apologize for any inconvenience on that, and I'll be glad to walk through this item to help clarity on the matter. So basically, this is one of the US DOT grant opportunities that came through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. This was one of dozens of grant opportunities that has been trickling out of Washington over the past few months. There's basically, in this program, there's over $5 billion over the next 5 years allocated to safety to help prevent death, serious injuries, and fatalities on our transportation network. This is being done through the grants process, which will be competitive. Many cities and counties will be applying for this across the country, as it's one of the first key steps to get federal funding. So it's a little interesting, this grant, because it's broken up into 2 distinct phases. And this grant opportunity I'm bringing before council tonight is focused primarily on phase 1 of this. It's to develop a safety action plan. This is basically a planning study, taking a very deep dive onto different safety strategies. It's not only looking at crash data and trends, it's also looking at best practices, different design elements, policies, best practices that the city can improve upon, and then develop a different project list moving forward for future funding. And again, it's going after all types of improvements, not just bike ped, it's looking at automobile, vehicular, commercial vehicle, transit, and also safe routes to school elements as well. Now, what's important about this is phase 1 is part of the safety action plan. And once that's completed, if you're successful in obtaining this grant, you can go after future federal funding for projects within that plan. So if we're trying to leverage federal funds for some of our transportation projects, we can pursue this planning study and then come up with project lists that we can go after for extra federal funding in the next 5 years. And some of those projects will include pedestrian safety enhancements such as sidewalk gaps, multi-use trails, supporting bike infrastructure for our bike network, and also carrying out speed management strategies. That includes traffic calming. And also we're looking at intersection safety as well as some new technologies to help promote safety across the city. And what I think is very encouraging about this is it dovetails nicely with our strategic goals. One of our strategic goals within the plan that was adopted earlier this year was to improve transportation to benefit Roswell residents. And a lot of those items include building multi-use trails, filling sidewalk gaps, implementing our T+2 projects. So this is a nice way to go after some additional funding based on our goals that we already have in play. Now, there's a few requirements I just want to point out. There's nothing really significant here. One of them is we have to have a public commitment by the mayor and council to implement a Vision Zero policy. This is basically just a policy that says our goal long-term is to eliminate injuries and fatalities on our transportation network. I know that's a lofty goal, but that's kind of what a lot of cities and counties are doing to set that standard looking long-term ahead. It's kind of the goal they want to reach over that long-term planning horizon. One of the other elements is we're supposed to have a task force charged with oversight of the action plan, its implementation, its development. We're still kind of trying to find out more information on that, whether it's made up of citizens, it's made up of residents, if it's staff members, elected officials, appointees. That will all be determined at a later date, but I don't foresee a major challenge with that. We'll also be reviewing best practices and looking at our existing policies for potential improvements. And we'll also be required to do some reporting and data monitoring, which we'll have to submit to the feds. This will not be a problem because we're doing a lot of that already. We have a great working relationship with our police department, collecting crash data, analyzing fatalities. We meet with police every quarter to look at not only the where and when of traffic accidents, but what the contributing factors were. Or is there anything we could do to improve that across the city? And then lastly, we have to expend all the money within 5 years, but I wouldn't foresee that being a problem given a long list of projects we could likely apply for. So in closing, this is the funding breakdown. We'd be requiring for $200,000 of federal grant money. That is the minimum amount you can request. It requires a 20% local match, which is $50,000 for a grand total of $250,000. The money, if approved by mayor and council, would come out of the general fund operating contingency. But in recent developments that I've learned just in the past couple of days is the North Fulton CID has money set aside for their partner cities, Alpharetta and Roswell, to apply for some of these federal grants to pony up for the federal match or the local match for the federal funds. So if that were the case, the city of Roswell could apply for this grant, set aside our local money, put that money on the line, and then if we're selected by the US DOT sometime in 2023, we could seek reimbursement from the CIDF for those funds if that's the pleasure of the mayor and council. That is a tremendous opportunity. So again, staff's recommendation is to apply for the $200,000 with a commitment of $50,000 in local funds with an option to reach out to the CID in the new year. So with that, I'll yield for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cox, very much. Appreciate that. Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Wilson, and to Mr. Cox, thank you. I definitely appreciate you urgently bringing this to the council for this opportunity. So often, the grants that we see are 50% match, so seeing a 20% one is definitely very attractive. And knowing that there's even not a guarantee, but the possibility, hopefully, that a CID could actually even provide those matching funds is very attractive. But more importantly, I think is the cause. It's an important cause that absolutely we should be publicly committing to this focus of 0 fatalities and serious injuries. We unfortunately in Roswell have had tragedies and have had fatalities, and with that, I believe when I was at the Georgia Municipal Association meeting, I ended up speaking with someone from the U.S. Department of Transportation, and I believe they were talking about just a lot of the funding that's going to be available through grants like this, and I believe they had said for places where there's pedestrian fatalities, which unfortunately we have had, and I pray that we never have again. But they said that was something potentially that the government, the federal government, was going to be looking at when targeting. So obviously, no matter whether we get this grant or not, I pray that we're able to make sure all pedestrians are safe and that there's not pedestrian fatalities in the future. That being said, I would definitely love a lot of federal money to help us accomplish that important goal.
Thank you, Councilmember Palermo. Councilmember Hills.
Thank you, Mayor Wilson. Mr. Cox, could you help me just get this straight in my head? So let's say we're going to approve it. Let's say we get approved and we get the funding. How does that work for the next part? Like, is this sort of a magic number to get our foot in the door, to get us on their radar? Forgive me, I just haven't had...
That's kind of why I broke it up into phase 1 and phase 2. You can't just jump to phase 2. You have to do an action plan first. And that money would likely be used for consultant services to develop a safety action plan and look at all these policies and develop projects. A lot of these we already have on our books, but we would likely be looking more in depth. I know traffic calming is a major issue. Looking at corridor improvements is a major issue. So these are definitely things we could invest in to get a better handle on that and use federal money in the process. And it's possible we could even use some of this federal funding, if we're awarded, towards some of our existing locally funded projects as well to supplement those funds. So I think it's a win-win.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councilmember Hills. Council, any other thoughts or questions for Mr. Cox? At this time, with no other thoughts or questions from council, I bring it to Roswell residents. Anybody would like to speak or ask any questions on this item? Yes, sir. Come on up, please come up, I'm sorry. Welcome. Tell us who you are. And Charles, where do you live?
Horseshoe Bend.
Awesome.
Just a question, would that, the money you're referring to, would that be able to be used to replace traffic lights with roundabouts?
Primarily for pedestrian, bicycle, and mobility. As far as replacing roundabouts or adding them?
Yes.
I have not heard roundabouts mentioned specifically, but if it's under the guise of traffic calming and pedestrian safety, because a lot of times we have intersections that lack crosswalks, they lack pedestrian crossings, that could be an eligible expense. I know a lot of our roundabouts include pedestrian signals, the little strobe lights, RFB signals is what we call them, rectangular flashing beacons, are also hawk signals. So there could be some elements that are associated with pedestrian crossings and roundabouts. I'm not sure if it actually pay for the roundabout itself.
Charles, thank you for the question, sir. And love the t-shirt. Any other comments or thoughts from our Roswell residents? Thank you very much. Being that there is none, I bring it back to the council for any other thoughts, comments, or questions. Being that there are none, Councilmember Palermo, do you have a motion?
Motion to approve a resolution to apply for a Safe Streets and Roads for All discretionary grant.
Thank you, Councilmember Palermo. Do I have a second? I got a second from Councilmember Hall this time. Thank you, Councilmember Hall. I have a second. All in favor of the approval resolution to apply for Safe Streets and Roads for All, SS4A discretionary grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation, and the amendment, there's an amendment there, isn't there? The piece about the, or is that's it? That's it. All in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you very much. It passes unanimously. I thank you very much. We'll now go to the city attorney's report. Mr. Davidson.
Thank you, Mayor. The only item I have is a recommendation for closure to discuss personnel litigation and real estate.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. Do I have a motion for closure?
Motion for closure.
Motion for closure by Councilmember Hills. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Palermo. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Motion passes unanimously. We go to closure. Being that there are no other items, this mayor and council meeting of September 12, 2022 is adjourned. Thank you.